Hello there guys, what is going on? SonOfChelsea back here again for another edition of my team selector and preview ahead of the game at home to Man City in the Premier League at Stamford Bridge. It's a massive game for Chelsea. It really is, given the current mood. Now, it's weird talking about this game and previewing this game because with the current virus situation, with many games being postponed in the Premier League and looking in doubt, currently Man City's problems as well, recently with a number of players having to self-isolate, will this game be called off? And looking at the way games are being called off at the moment, we may not know until like 2 or 3 hours before kickoff, which I think is a bit irritating. I think it's not the greatest situation at the moment. I'm sure players, managers and supporters as well, it's a really frustrating time, and I don't know why we leave it so late before calling games off. I think given the current situation with things, I think it's really uncertain, and I think games should be called off sort of further ahead, to be honest. So going to do the preview as if it will go ahead. So maybe the game goes ahead or not. I'm not entirely sure. But as I say, I think that needs to be rectified. And I think there needs to be better planning by the Premier League to sort of put into place systems where if a game looks in doubt, it gets called off. Just safety first, maybe. I think it's probably of the frustration of both managers at the moment. Now, both Frank Lampard and Pep Guardiola have said they believe the game is set to go ahead. However, Man City, as I've stated already, have 5 first-team players in self-isolation who will be missing the game. Gabriel, Jesus and Kyle Walker are 2 of them, with Ederson confirming he is self-isolating. On Chelsea team news, Hakim Ziyech has trained with the first team and Frank Lampard will make a decision on his fitness beforehand, though Reece James is out with a small hamstring issue not related to his knee issue recently. Now let's take a look at Man City, who will be missing 5 first-team players. Forming the last 5 games, 3 wins and 2 draws. They sit 8th in the Premier League with 2 games in hand after the Everton game was postponed. Raheem Sterling is City's top scorer this season with 7 goals. Now, it's a bit interesting with Man City this year because you expect sort of the flair possession style of play under Pep Guardiola. They've been a bit more reactive and a bit more slow in certain games. Uncertainty maybe over Guardiola's future earlier in the season. Sergio Aguero only recently returning from injury, still trying to find a new spine of their team after both Company and David Silva have moved on. In the last game, they did play a 3-4-3. I wonder if that will be the formation again, given their problems with selection of players. John Stones, I think, has improved massively this season. He's been a big part of their team where, you know, he's been linked with Chelsea in the summer potentially, and just to move away generally. So I think it's good maybe for England that he's getting back into some form, but now he's a main player in that defence once again, with Diaz coming in the summer and has looked quite impressive in their defence as well. And of course, we have to talk about Kevin De Bruyne. It's pretty obvious, isn't it? His threat, one of the best players in the world for me, the best player in the Premier League. I still think, I know he's had a difficult year, he hasn't really hit the heights, but you just look generally, even when he isn't at his best, the involvement and influence he has over this City team is incredible. The passing range, I mean, it's just undefendable at times what he does with the ball at his feet. You know, I think it's very hard to stop Kevin De Bruyne, and you know, if other players in City's team, the quality they have, are on form as well, you have to sort of decide who you're prioritising. But KDB is such a massive player for them, and Chelsea know this one of the most, not only with our history naturally with Kevin De Bruyne being at the club, but also I think about last season, that amazing free kick he scored against us. So you have to be looking towards him. We don't know, he could be one of those players self-isolating, but if he is playing, he's a massive threat, really one of the top threats in the Premier League, and I'm always scared to come up against him because he's such an incredible talent that can change the game in a moment. Another player that does impress me is Phil Foden. 5 goals and 4 assists so far this season. Had a really good game against Arsenal in the League Cup a couple of weeks ago. Surprised to me he doesn't feature more for Pep Guardiola. Such an amazing talent that has got that versatility within him to maybe play in a couple of different positions in attacking areas. And for me, it's just a bit surprising that, you know, with the slow start Man City have had, Foden doesn't feature more and isn't sort of a guaranteed starter at this point. So I'd like to see him on the bench again tomorrow because I think he's such an incredible talent as well. When you think about KDB, you think about Phil Foden, dangerous midfield there. So I think that Foden absolutely should be playing more for Man City, and if he is starting, another danger man to look out for. But I want to talk about potentially our danger man in Hakim Ziyech. If he does return tomorrow, even off the bench, I think it's massive to have Ziyech back. We've seen how much we've missed him in recent weeks. His creativity, his influence on that right side, it's been massive. Let's look at his stats so far this year. As you can see on this graphic here, obviously hasn't played that much this year due to some injury problems. Didn't really start the year till like early October, and then of course got injured after Leeds, so he's been out since then with a hamstring issue. He's exceeding his XG in goals and assists so far, which I think is really impressive, and it's just the influence Hakim Ziyech has on this team in attacking areas with that left foot of his. I think you can tell good players, even if they don't have the best games, they still maybe open up space for other players because teams will focus in on a player like Ziyech, but also just naturally the way he opens up positions. He's not a natural winger, so he gets into really interesting positions. Sometimes he'll drop deep, sometimes he'll go into central areas, and I think it's really hard for teams to prioritise sort of stopping Hakim Ziyech because you can't allow him to get on that left foot, because if he can get on that left foot pretty consistently in a game, he can cause havoc for opposing defences. And I think with Ziyech back in the coming weeks, I feel that the likes of Timo Werner, Christian Pulisic and other Chelsea attackers will start to benefit from it, and I think Chelsea will start to play as a better attacking team, unlike we have in recent games. So I think just having him back in the first team squad, even if he doesn't start tomorrow, I think is massive for Frank Lampard. But let's go into my predicted 11. This is it here, as you can see on your screen now. Edouard Mendy in goal. I feel that Mendy, of course, is still Chelsea's first choice goalkeeper. I think he'll likely get a rest in the FA Cup game against Morecambe. Back four with Reece James. I think Dave will come in here once again. Kurt Zouma, Thiago Silva, both fully rested against Aston Villa. Haven't played since Boxing Day, so I think they're guaranteed to start here, and I don't know why Frank Lampard wouldn't, given our issues with other centre-backs in that area. Ben Chilwell, also known as Lazarus, for his recovery after that ankle injury, incredible. And assisting goals against Wolves and Aston Villa in December. Could have scored a worldie winner against Aston Villa, but for me, such an important player for this Chelsea team, and even without Reece James, adds that dynamism and sort of overload in attacking areas from a fullback area, which we just lack when we don't have either of these players. So I think Ben Chilwell has to be starting once again. As you can see, put Kante back at DM. I don't know why we're shifting this around. I understand rotation against Aston Villa, but the idea in any other game when Kante is fully fit and other players are fit in that midfield that Kante isn't at DM, it started to click and work this season. Why do you want to move Kante out of that role? It seems to be optimising him this year. I know he's had some difficult games recently, but for me, when he's fit, when everyone's fit, Kante should be at DM. I don't know why you want to move that around and bring Jorginho back into this team. So Kante at DM. He performed so well in this role against Man City in a 4-3-3 the last time we played them in the Premier League in that 2-1 win. I'm going to speak about that 2-1 win when we get further up the pitch, because I think it's an important game to reference in relation to tomorrow's encounter. A chance for Kai Havertz maybe. Looked fresh off the bench. I think it will likely be Mateo Kovacic, who didn't play against Aston Villa, but I think back to that 2-1 win last season, and I feel like Chelsea need off-the-ball runners. We need movement, because I get the sense that Frank may sit a little bit deeper in this game against Man City, maybe a little bit more cautious, and when we're moving forward, we need numbers in attack, and I feel like Kai Havertz can give you those off-the-ball runs that Kovacic just doesn't do very naturally. He's not that type of player, and I think it could cause City problems in attack. So maybe Kai Havertz for me, but I think it's likely Kovacic, but I'm going to go with Kai Havertz. Would love to see him start tomorrow alongside Mason Mount. These stats here from Alex Goldberg, friend of the channel. I'm sure you know who Alex is. Of the 2021 Premier League under-21 ranks, so these are the rankings for players in that age bracket. He's top for assists, key passes, big chance created, shot creating actions, goal creating actions, progressive passes, passes under pressure, switches, tackles and interceptions. He's third, fourth for ball recoveries and successful pressures. So he's first for a lot. That's due to the fact he plays a lot of games for Chelsea. He's such a key player for Frank Lampard. But I think it shows you that's not just from corners, that's all-round play. Look at that pass and his influence against Aston Villa in the goal for Olivier Giroud. He's such a key player for Chelsea. I don't want to hear about him being average. I don't want to hear that he shouldn't be in this team. He's absolutely essential for the way Frank Lampard plays. His energy, but also his creativity has gone up a lot this season. So for me, Mason Mount still has to be a main player for Chelsea when he's fit. I think he'll be fully rested against Morecambe in the FA Cup if that game goes ahead. But for me, Mason Mount, you need to be playing him in a big game for Chelsea and for Lampard. And Pulisic, of course, starting at left wing, had an amazing game against Man City last season. One of his best in a Chelsea shirt so far. That directness, that goal threat and frightening speed to exploit City's weakness on transition. I think that can be the same once again. And as Pulisic getting more minutes on the pitch, I think, he could have scored against Aston Villa. I think he's starting to get back to his best form of fitness, which I think is great for Chelsea, and influence in the team I think is massive. And I just think he's that type of player in a game like this, where, as I say, I think Chelsea will have to do a lot of defending. I think Chelsea will look to be a much more counter-attacking team than a possession team. I don't think we're going to go at Man City tomorrow. sort of from the off. I think we'll look to hit them on the break like we did last season so successfully. So I think a player like Pulisic, his pace, I think is so key for a game tomorrow. And as well, Callum Hudson-Odoi, I think deserves a start once again. You know, Hakim Ziyech just back from injury. I think he'll likely be on the bench. So I think in good form against Arsenal and Aston Villa, switching of play, I think Hudson-Odoi is looking good at the moment. And I think Hudson-Odoi, it's a great moment for him at the moment individually when Chelsea is struggling and we have injury and fitness problems, that he is taking his opportunity. And I think it's likely he'll get a start against Man City tomorrow from the off. And up top, as you can see, I'm going with Olivier Giroud. I just think currently with Frank Lampard struggles, with the team struggles, I think you've got to stick with a player that's in form, and that player is Olivier Giroud. Scored against Aston Villa last time. Yes, I know if you're playing counter-attacking football, you may want Tammy or maybe even Timo Werner here, but I just would rather go with a player in form. I just think Olivier Giroud has earned this starting spot. I think Frank Lampard will rely on him. I think about the struggles of Lampard's time in charge when we've been in pressure situations. I think he'll look towards Giroud. I think he's one of Chelsea's best in-form players. The only reason you go against playing Giroud here is maybe Timo Werner and maybe shifting Werner to a central spot. But has Werner done enough to earn his starting spot here? I think, you know, it should still be a meritocracy. I think there should still be players playing on form. And that's the way I'm judging my current team in general. So I think Giroud has to be starting for me as well. But that is it for my predicted 11 and my thoughts ahead of tomorrow's massive game at the Bridge against Man City. Let me know your opinions on the game. Do you agree? Do you disagree with my team? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you guys so much for taking the time to watch this video. If you did enjoy it, hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you never miss an upload. Follow me on Twitter at SonOfChelsea, and I'll see you again.